Hey everybody, this is Jenny from JKUO Designs, and I wanted to give you an overview of this mini duffel that I just finished. I think I finished it 2 or 3 days ago now. Wanted to talk about the bag overall and some of the thought that was put into the design. And let me start off with the dimensions of the bag. So this is what I said, it is a mini duffel, so let me go ahead and measure this for you. It runs just about a foot lengthwise. It is about 6.5 inches, six and a half inches tall or so, and its widest point is about 8 inches. So it's not a really large bag, but it's a really nice size for, well, what I designed it originally for was for a gym bag, but it ended up being the perfect size for everyday carry. This is the new one. My old one, or the original prototype that I made, looks like this. You have to forgive me, this is not a studio by any means. I'm trying to get the lighting to be right, but this is the original bag that I made. It has really darkened over time. If you look on the inside, this is the original color, if you can see it in the light. And over time it has darkened to this, but this was my original prototype that I had made. And I ended up really, really loving it, and I've been getting compliments when I'm out in public. There'd be people who would, actually men and women, who would say, hey, that's a nice bag. I've never seen something like that before. Do you sell them? So I decided to make another one, also as an exercise to kind of figure out, because usually the next question after that is, how long does it take you to make one? And my answer was, I don't know, because on my prototype I was just building as I went, and I wasn't keeping track of time. So on this one I actually kept track of time for the most part, so now I have a ballpark of how much time it takes, and I'm realizing that it's so much work. Handmade is just so much work that this is probably going to be the second and last mini duffel that I'm going to make, at least in the near future. It might be quite a while before I decide if I ever want to make one again. This build time was around 22 hours. And that didn't include a lot of prep work and overhead time, because I create templates, I measure things out, I do trial and error on certain things, and I didn't even count that in the time. So if we were to include everything, I think it would be closer to maybe 30, 35 hours or something like that. And this is not my day job, this is my hobby, so it's just so much work to put one of these together. I mentioned that it is one of the reasons why it's so much work is because everything was hand done, handmade. I figured out the dimensions. I cut these pieces out by hand with a razor blade and one of these rotary cutters, and you can see these rulers and my cutting boards everywhere. All the stitches on here are hand sewn. All the edges are hand burnished. So all of the edges on this bag are burnished and polished with beeswax, and all that's done by hand. You can see the stitching on here. Oh, it's so hard to see. But all the stitching is done by hand. I don't have a machine that does leather sewing. All the hardware that I'm going to show you is hand set. So, everything's just completely hand done, and it's not efficient in any way. But it makes something that's, I think is full of character and is very special. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Are the stitches perfectly aligned? Is everything perfectly cut straight? No. That's what it is, so that's handmade. But I wanted to give you an overview of the bag, so let's start off with the material. So this material is vegetable tan leather. It comes from an Italian tannery, and I'm not going to pronounce the name because I already know I'm going to butcher it. I'm not going to say the type of leather. I'll leave the information in the description box for the YouTube video. You can take a look at it. And if those of you who do know how to pronounce it, please let me know how to pronounce it properly. But this tannery produces some super high quality premium leathers where all their colors are dyed all the way through the thickness of the leather. So this leather is, I think, 4.5 to 5 ounces or so. This main body color, this kind of a darker brown / maybe slightly grayish color, is their taupe. And some of these labels and the side pockets are in the natural color. It is a very heavy duty, nice leather, and let me zoom in on it for you because I want to show you the texture of the leather. And just bear with me. You see how there's this pebble grain on the surface of the leather? That has been stamped into the leather. And what makes it really nice when it has this grain is that the surface of this leather then is more wear resistant in terms of scratching and denting. I actually have my label stamped into, you can barely see, you can kind of see it under the light where you can see my label a little bit. We can see that even that stamp is barely taking just because of the nature of this leather. Unlike let me show you my original duffel that I made. This one is made of leather from the same tannery, but it's this smooth leather. And if you take a look, you see how can you see it? You see how there's scratching on here? I have taken this bag on airplanes. I'm generally pretty gentle with my bags, but it's unavoidable scratching this smooth kind of leather. So you see that over time it does get scratched. It's not, maybe cosmetically it is changing the bag, but the integrity of the bag is still good. So let me continue to talk about this. So that's the leather as far as it goes. And then as we get to the hardware, I'll show you. There's very little hardware on this bag. So let's start with the exterior of the bag. So the bag is made with as few pieces of leather as possible to keep it really simple. The less stitching you have, the less weak points that you have on the bag. So the main body, this taupe part, is just one big piece of leather. If I open it up, you'll see it's just one big panel of leather that goes all the way around. It doesn't break. I don't have multiple pieces of leather that is making up the body. Of the side panels, there's this interior panel, and then the pocket. There's a pocket on the other side as well. The main body of the bag, the closure, is a magnetic snap closure. You can see there's a preview of the inside, which we'll talk about. But I also finished off all the back parts of the snaps to make it nice and smooth and to give it a better look as well. But let me talk about the side pockets. So there's a pocket on each side. One side has a magnetic snap closure. The other side does not. And the reason is because on my prototype, I'm realizing that I'm using this side pocket for my phone most of the time. And so on my original prototype, I had the snap closures, the magnetic snap closures on both sides. But I realized that, when I try to slip my phone in and out, that hardware just gets in the way, ends up scratching my phone. But luckily my phone has all the, the case, and it has a screen protector, so it's not being damaged. But, that magnet really got in the way. So on this bag, I left one of the pockets clean. So it's really easy to slip your phone in and out. The other thing I wanted to mention is about the strap itself. So this strap is a really thick cotton webbing. And you can see because it's brand new, it's really, really stiff. Well, here's one of the other features is I have this like a strap holder here. It's got a button so that you can open it and close it, and it will keep your strap together. But if I close it and I do this, the strap pretty much stands up by itself. But over time, that strap will get softer and softer. Let me go ahead and open this up again. Let me show you a briefcase that I made about 2 years ago. It's a briefcase that I use for work, and I've taken on many, many trips on the airplane for personal and for work purposes. Oh, sorry, it's so hard to get this in frame, but this is my briefcase, and the strap is made out of that same cotton webbing, but look, over time it's just gotten a lot, it's softened up, super, super soft now. But when it was new, it was stiff like this. So the thing about this strap is it's what I call a floating strap, meaning that the strap is actually not hard attached to the bag. You can pull on it, it'll move. You can change the length and stuff. And so really the weight of the bag is being cradled by the strap. There's nothing really that's putting strain on it. It's not sewn to the bag. It is not riveted or attached to the bag, hard attached in any way. The way it's being held to the bag is with these, I don't even know what you would call these, like a strap keeper. So there's 4 of them, 2 on each side, and they kind of hold the straps in place, but the strap itself is floating. And one reason why I made it that way is so that, over time, if this becomes, let's say you can use this bag for decades, this strap might be the first thing to fall apart if it ends up doing that. Or maybe the strap gets damaged or something happens and you need to replace it. This just makes it so easy because it's not hard attached to the bag. You can just cut the strap, remove it, and replace it with a new one. You can even reuse this strap keeper onto your new strap. I was thinking way down the line, but it's there. A feature is there if you need it. And that brings up another point, is that this bag is made so that it is fully repairable and it's rebuildable if needed down the road. You could either contact me, sometime way down the line, or somebody else who knows leather work, and they can fully rebuild this bag, whether it's just making repairs or even replacing parts or replacing pieces of leather on them. So it is built with that in mind as well. The other thing I want to mention about the strap is notice the length of it. Of course, this gives a nice drop to the bag when you are holding it as a shoulder bag, where your arm can fit underneath your arm really nicely. But there's another reason why this strap is this long, and that is that if you find yourself in a case where you're out taking a walk, or you go out somewhere really nice in nature and you decide to go for a hike, this bag can be worn as a backpack. You just turn it over on its side. Let me see if I can change this a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. I don't know if this is going to work, but can you see? Here, let me do it like this. See, when it's up on its end like this, it can be worn as a backpack. And you can even snap this closed in front of your chest if you happen to find yourself in that case. And on my prototype, I've actually used it several times like this. I have gone traveling and walking around in the city, and the strap that was holding on my shoulders kept slipping off of my jacket. And I was probably walking for a couple of hours. So at some point I'm like, okay, let me use the backpack feature of this bag. And so I did, and it came in really handy. I'm not using it every day like a backpack, but there are those times when it really, really does come in handy. All right, let me readjust this. Yeah, so it would look like this. All right. So the other thing is that this opening, this flap, when you're holding it in backpack mode, this flap is actually sitting nicely against your back. So your back will help keep your bag closed. So that's part of the consideration as well. Oh, I also want to show you the bottom of the bag. So if you look at the bottom of the bag, I have sewn on a couple of, I guess you can call them protector pads, or they're not really feet, but they're there to help protect the main body of the bag. So down the line, this is what's going to be touching the ground or surfaces the most, and if they do wear out, you can totally replace that, rebuildable. But just gives it a nice look as well. So let's go ahead and go onto the inside of the bag. So the inside of the bag looks like this. Let me actually get this light so that you can see it. The inside of the bag looks like this. So you notice that on the 2 side panels, there's actually these, I don't even know what to call them. There are these flaps on the inside, and they're kept secure or closed with this strap that runs lengthwise. The strap has a snap button on it so that you can open it up. But before I open it up, I'll tell you why this is here. So obviously if you have stuff in here, a lot of stuff, it helps keep your things contained inside the bag. It keeps things in the bag. But also, if you think about backpack mode, when you have the bag on its end like this, it also helps keep things inside and won't fall out. So it's a little bit overkill on the security, but I feel like it makes me more comfortable with knowing that my stuff is going to stay inside the bag. So let me show you how this works. I find that in my use of the prototype, I almost never have to open this. Very, very few times where I actually have to undo the snap. I just leave it closed and you can throw things in and take things out like this. But in those times where, let's say, we'll talk about the liner, let's say you want to take the liner out, or you want to fit in an umbrella that goes the full length of the bag and it's hard to stuff it in with this closed, then you can open it. And so let me open it up for you. So it just snaps open like that, and you can completely have full access to the mouth of the bag by pulling the flaps out like that. You see that? I'll show you what it looks like here. When it's open like this, it looks like that. And once you have it completely open, then you have complete access to the interior. So let's go to the interior now. I have made a custom liner on the inside. The custom liner is fully removable. I don't know, I'll pull out a little bit of it. I don't want to take the full thing out, but it's actually in 3 pieces, the 2 side pieces and the main piece. But you see, you can pull this whole thing out. Once you pull out the main body, you can pull out the 2 sides too. And I made it out of a pretty heavy duty, I think it's a cotton fabric. It's not canvas, but it's not as thick as canvas is, but it's kind of closer to that. My sewing skills are, I don't know, beginner / intermediate. I don't even know if I can consider it intermediate, but it's enough to put something together, enough to make something that will stay together as well. All the stitching that I did on the inside is done with a machine. On the fabric, it's with a machine, but it is polyester thread, so it's not cotton thread. I'm sorry, I think it's actually nylon thread, so it's really strong. And what I want to mention is I did finish off all the edges, so the pockets are folded, so it's 2 layers of fabric for all of these pockets. And I used, what is this, bias tape to finish off all the edges, which is this kind of a cream or whiter color fabric that you're seeing. That's just bias tape. And so what I have is I have a pocket on each side of the 2 ends. And then one of these sides has 2 pockets, you can see. And then the other side has 1 long pocket. So on my original prototype, I had put 2 small pockets on both sides, but then I found out that when the pocket's only this wide, I can't even put a pen in there. If I have tickets to a movie theater or tickets to a show, it doesn't fit in there. So on this one, I made one of the pockets long like this so that you can put things like pens and tickets in there a lot easier. The other thing I want to mention is, notice when I pulled this out that this is not just a floppy piece of fabric, and it's because I have a stiffener sewn into or sandwiched between the fabric. The stiffener is like a really, really dense cardboard that's used for shoes and bag stiffeners. So obviously you don't want to be you don't want to be creasing the lining, but what it does is it helps keep its shape. And this is a really dense cardboard, so it will last a really long time. I used the same kind of stiffener in my prototype, but I had used a polyester-like felt, and that felt over time doesn't wear so well. Let me show you. I took out this piece from my prototype, but you see how it's kind of fraying or what is it called? Pilling over time. And so I thought, this is not something I'd be comfortable, sending off to somebody else. So it's okay for me, and it'll still last a really long time, but it just doesn't look great. So for this duffel, I used this material instead. Let me think if there's anything else. I did choose this color instead of a dark color because if you use a dark color, I've learned the hard way, so you won't be able to find anything. So in this case, it's still light enough of a color for you to see things. And I think that's about it. So let me show you how to close it. So when you want to close it, you just kind of tuck these side flaps into the side of the bag like this. Do the same thing on the other side. Take the 2 side flaps and just kind of tuck it in. And then snap it up. And then you've got the magnet closures, which will snap up like that. The bag is closed. And if you're going to take it out for every day on your shoulder, do it like this. The other thing I could have thought about, I'll just mention it anyway, because it was in consideration. I'm right-handed. I know that not everybody is right-handed, but for me, because I'm right-handed, I tend to carry the bag on my right shoulder. And so if you're carrying it on your right shoulder, most likely you're going to have the flap opening towards that side, not to the outside. If my body is over here, then I'll have the flap to the outside. So the pocket that doesn't have the magnetic side closure is on the front side of the bag when you're carrying it like this, so that you can slip your phone. If I'm carrying it like this, with the opening flap on to the outside of me, then this pocket without the magnetic side closure is just to the front of me, and it's so easy for me to slip my phone inside and out. You probably don't want to be carrying your phone on the back of the bag, because that just leaves it open for somebody to snatch if they really wanted to. But yeah, so that's the overview of the mini duffel. I have it listed for $450 on my website. My website is www.jkuodesigns.com. That's JKUO designs.com. I have my website link in the information of this video, so if you're interested. I have more pictures of the bag on my website, and more descriptions, so I think I've pretty much covered everything here. And I appreciate your attention, and if hopefully you found this interesting or useful, thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.